Thank you, Chief Constable Bailey, for joining us. Let me just briefly say a little bit about who Naked Truth are, just in case some of these viewers don't know us. So Naked Truth is a charity, a project that seeks to open eyes and free lives from the damaging impact of pornography. And we do that by creating awareness, doing and delivering education in schools and communities, and finally by providing recovery programs as well for those who are porn users and they're seeking to see some change in their life. You, of course, Chief Constable Bailey, you are the Chief Constable for Norfolk, which is where I'm from originally. And also you are the National Police Lead for Child Protection. Before we jump in, tell us maybe just briefly about yourself. How long have you been a police officer?
Well, I'm now approaching the start of my 36th year. And I've been the Chief Constable of Norfolk. I'm shortly about to start my 9th year before I retire at the end of June. So I will have been in the service by that time 36 years. So it's a long time.
Incredible. And when did you take on that lead of the child protection side of things?
So started my role as the lead for child protection in January 2014. So I've had it ever since. So I've had it a long time now. My 8th year. A lot has changed in that time. New threats have emerged, obviously, and it's remaining one of the most challenging working groups within the National Police Chiefs Council.
Yeah, and this is why I reached out to you, and so I appreciate you taking this time. I think I recently heard you on some national radio, partly because at the beginning here, we're recording this in 2021. At the beginning of 2021, there was some media coverage around, in particular, a website called Everyone's Invited, where a young woman set up this website partly because of her own experiences, that she'd experienced harassment, sexual harassment, I think at university or at school, shared her story and then encouraged others to do the same. And within even a few weeks, tens of thousands of stories of peer harassment were being shared, and universities and schools kind of being named in that. And I know then you were asked, in your role, what you felt and believe some of the reasons behind that, perhaps that kind of young people, young adults experiencing that level of harassment. And in those interviews, you mentioned that you believe there was a link between some of that harassment, that sexual harassment, and the culture perhaps surrounding it, and young people consuming pornography. And of course, in my work, that was something I'd sort of see in schools and just generally in our work. But it was really significant, I think, for me to hear someone like yourself sharing that. I wanted to ask you, why do you feel there is a link between those two things, that kind of consumption of porn and then the kind of behavior that's being reported in websites like Everyone's Invited?
Ian, there are a number of indicators and a number of statistics which I think support the hypothesis that there is a link, and there is no doubt that the evolution of the World Wide Web, what it's now affording people the opportunity to do, is then bringing to the fore, whilst there is a huge amount of good connected with the web, some of the darker sides to it, some of the material that is being consumed is then impacting upon and within everyday lives. And I go back to the fact that in the 1990s, the Home Office undertook a study of indecent imagery and its prevalence. There were less than 10,000 images in circulation. There are now over 17 million unique images on the child abuse image database. Yeah. And those images go up by 500,000 every 2 months. Now, that's facilitated pretty much because of the technical revolution that we've seen with the advent of the web, camera phones, the ability to video, and what we are now seeing is billions of hits on pornographic sites every year. The consumption of pornography has now reached significant levels, and there is no doubt that young men in particular are viewing pornography at an age where previously they weren't viewing it in anywhere near the volumes that they are seeing. And we're now starting to see young men viewing pornography and then ultimately looking for child sexual abuse material because they've become desensitized to the porn that they started to watch. So there are a number of concerning indicators, and I think we only have to look at a number of the testimonies that have been uploaded on the Everyone's Invited website to see that so much of that overt behaviour and what young men are now doing is being driven by what they are viewing online.
And when did you first begin to see the link between porn use and some of then the offline attitudes and actions
I've been
experience?
Becoming more aware of it probably in the last couple of years. It wasn't as great a risk as I saw it going back to 2014, 2015, maybe 16, but maybe in the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, maybe max, I've become more aware of what I perceive to be a growing link and a cause for concern. And I gave evidence, or I approached the Department for Communities and Local Government about the importance of age verification when it was being considered. Unfortunately, in my opinion, that wasn't taken forward, and age verification doesn't exist. And Ian, I've always thought it completely bizarre that you can't gamble unless you're 18, yet you can view pornography as 11, 12 or 13-year-old. Something doesn't seem quite right there, but that is where we are. The online harms might now do something about that, but I think we're all becoming increasingly concerned about some of the behaviours, some of the attitudes, and some of the actions that the viewing of pornography is having on young people and on young minds. Yeah,
and I think you're right. And as you say, here in the UK, there's talk of a new legislation, the online harms bill, but it probably will take a number of years before that's implemented, at least, won't it? And so, as you say, there's a long period of time still where a young person just has to tick a box on a website that says, yes, I am over 18. And then they have access to the kind of materials that are often very aggressive, very violent. I think there is a recognition that the nature of material is shifting and changing. It isn't just topless, models, page-free type stuff that perhaps some of our viewers when they were teenagers might have looked at. The nature of it's considerably different as well, isn't it?
We are seeing some changes in it, yes, there is no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, do you think porn has a broader impact on young people, just generally? So for young, obviously we're touching a little bit on the way that maybe it is normalizing aggressive behavior and some of that things, but what are some of the other impacts that you see on young people?
I think there is a big issue here in terms of how young men, how young ladies, young women are growing up to understand what healthy relationships look like, what healthy sexual relationships look like, and it is blurring the lines in terms of those norms of normality are to the point where actually I think it's corrupting them. And I think there now is a perception growing amongst young people of, well, this is what good sex looks like, and actually in so many instances that is not a healthy relationship, that is not a healthy sexual relationship. There is, as you say, I think an increasingly more and more violence is involved in some of these films and some of these videos that people are watching. And what we're now seeing that played out in everyday life. We're seeing it played out in those Everyone's Invited testimonies. We're seeing it played out in the number of rape and serious sexual offences we're seeing reported within schools and at the hands of fellow students. And I can't help but think, although I have no evidence, Ian, that this is going to be having an impact on people's well-being. There needs to be some form of safeguard here. There needs to be some form of focus within schools around educating young people about what they're viewing and what healthy relationships and healthy sexual relationships look like. Young children need to be made aware of the risks of what they're doing and the activities they're taking and the activities they're taking part in. And schools have a role to play in that. Teachers, parents have a critical role to play in it. And actually, I think it's a debate that we need to start to have as part of a broader societal conversation that says, do we really want our children's lives being framed by what they're viewing online, and in particular, and from a pornographic perspective, by watching films on some of the big porn sites?
Yeah. I read a statistic last month, which was released by the Higher Education Policy Institute, so a think tank who had interviewed a number of university students. And 1/3 of those students said, as they kind of went into higher education, that they felt they learned more about sex from pornography than they had from their kind of formal education in high school.
Yeah.
So what do you feel? I mean, you mentioned schools. What do you feel is the role of schools and maybe agencies like ourselves working with schools and parents and guardians and carers to have that conversation about pornography versus healthy relationships?
I think what we've got to do is, ideally, parents would feel comfortable and confident having that conversation with children about sex, sexuality, sexual relationships. That message should be reinforced within school settings at an early age, because we're seeing the proliferation of first-time new sexual imagery of children. The assessment is the majority are of girls between the ages of 11 and 13. So we're not talking about in your late teens, we're talking about young children. And what we should be doing is we should be developing a curriculum that is shared with parents, supported by parents, and being delivered by people that have credibility in the eyes of the students, that are not the maths teacher in the lecture before, and that they can get those key messages across. And I would like to think that one of the findings of the Ofsted thematic at this moment in time, in response to the Everyone's Invited movement, is that there is a review of what relationships and sexual education or sex education looks like, and recommendations are made in terms of how it's delivered, by whom it's delivered, and when it's delivered. Chief
Constable Bailey, thank you so much just for spending some time sharing some of that. Really appreciate it. We're also involved in delivering some of those lessons in schools. As you say, I don't know whether it always feels comfortable for teachers to be delivering that, although some schools and teachers are taking that challenge on. But sometimes just having an embarrassment-free educator from the outside who can bring some expertise can make all the difference. And so that's something else that we're doing. So if you're connected to a school in any way and you're watching this, do get in touch with us about how we can maybe help your school as well. But I want to thank you again, Chief Constable Bailey, for spending this time. That's been great. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.